She fell in love with a mechanic, not knowing he was a billionaire pretending to be poor. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main character. The afternoon heat hung low over the small-town auto shop, the kind of place that smelled faintly of engine oil, warm asphalt, and worn-out dreams. Sparks cracked from a welding torch in the back, a radio hummed old country songs, and a man in a faded gray work shirt tightened the last bolt under the hood of a dusty Ford pickup. To anyone walking by, he looked like just another mechanic barely scraping by. But that was the point. Noah Hale wiped his hands on a shop rag, smearing grease across his knuckles. His hair was tousled, his jaw unshaven, and nothing about him hinted that he was the heir to Hale Dynasty Motors, a billion-dollar automotive empire with branches across the West Coast. He had walked away from all of it months ago: boardrooms, private jets, the suffocating world of tailored suits and fake smiles. Here, nobody bowed their head when he passed. Nobody cared about his last name. And for the first time in years, he could breathe. But today, someone unexpected walked through the garage door. A woman in worn jeans, a paint-stained backpack slung over her shoulder, and a look of determination hiding the exhaustion behind her eyes. Her name was Lily Hart. She had just lost her second job that week. Her rent was overdue, and the only thing keeping her from falling apart was the old Chevrolet she used to drive to the community art center where she taught free weekend classes. Except now that Chevy was coughing, rattling, and gasping like it had one foot in the grave. She stepped into the shop, brushing a stray lock of hair behind her ear as she tried to look confident. Hi. Do you fix old Chevys? Mine kind of died. Twice. Today. Her voice wobbled on that last word just a little. Noah lifted his head, surprised by the softness of her tone, the honesty in her eyes. Most customers came in irritated or demanding, but she stood there like someone carrying the weight of the world by herself, still trying to smile through it. Yeah, he said, his voice low, steady. I fix what people bring me. Show me. She blinked, taken aback by how gentle he sounded under all that grit and grease. He followed her outside where her tan Chevy sat crooked against the curb. The hood was already popped, smoke drifting upward in thin gray threads. Lily winced. Please tell me it's not the engine. I can't afford a new engine. I can barely afford lunch. She laughed nervously, the kind of laugh people use to hide fear. Noah didn't laugh with her, not mockingly, but with a softness she didn't expect. Let me take a look. He leaned over the engine, the sun catching the sweat on his neck, the smell of oil rising between them. Lily watched him work, noticing how confident his hands were, steady, precise, like he'd done this 1,000 times. And he had. Except he had also designed engines, overseen factories, and negotiated mergers worth millions. But she didn't need to know that. Not yet. After a few moments, he straightened up. It's the alternator, he said. It's dying. I can repair it, but the part isn't cheap. Lily's heart dropped. Of course it wasn't cheap. Of course today had to get worse. She swallowed hard and stared at her shoes. How much? Noah watched her shoulders slump, saw the panic she tried to hide. He recognized that look. He had worn it himself the night he walked out on his father's empire. He hesitated. Look, he said quietly. I can fix it for free today. Just leave the car here for a few hours. Her head snapped up. Free? Why would you do that? Noah shrugged, trying not to sound like a man breaking his own undercover rules. Because you look like you need someone to not make your day worse. Lily's lips trembled before she caught them between her teeth. She opened her mouth, closed it again, then whispered, Thank you. I don't even know your name. He wiped his hand on his jeans and offered it. Noah. She took it, her fingers brushing his, warm against his calloused skin. I'm Lily. And something shifted, quietly, subtly, in the space between them. Noah didn't know that this woman, with her messy ponytail and stubborn hope, would become the one person he couldn't lie to. And Lily didn't know that the man repairing her car for free was living a life too big, too powerful, too dangerous to touch hers. Not yet. But the universe had just placed them in the same garage, under the same unforgiving sun, with one broken Chevy and two hearts that didn't yet know they were about to collide. And all it took was one act of kindness to start a story that would change everything. The sun dipped lower behind the rooftops as Lily handed Noah her keys and walked away from the shop, glancing back once, twice, as if she was afraid the Chevy might suddenly explode without her supervision. Noah watched her go, the shop rag still hanging from his hand, an unfamiliar tug forming low in his chest. He told himself it was nothing, just another customer who needed help, but he had felt something shift when she looked at him with that mix of gratitude and disbelief. Most people treated him like a nobody here. She had treated him like a person. After she left, Noah pushed the Chevy into the bay and got to work. The alternator was worse than it looked. Bolts rusted, felt frayed. It should have taken a few hours, but he found himself working faster, wiping sweat from his forehead, determined to get the car running before she returned. He had spent years designing engines worth more than her entire apartment building. But this simple act, getting her car to run, felt strangely important. It was almost dark when Lily returned. She stepped into the shop hesitantly, as if afraid she had overstayed whatever miracle she was granted earlier. "Hi, I brought you something," she said, lifting a paper bag that smelled faintly of warm bread. "It is nothing fancy, just sandwiches. You fix my day. The least I can do is fix your dinner." Noah blinked, surprised. Most people took free work and ran. She was bringing him dinner. Real dinner. He wiped his hands again and nodded toward her car. "The Chevy is good to go." She gasped. Already, he said, shrugging like it was no big deal, even though he had skipped lunch and half of the afternoon to finish it. "I had the part in the back. It was an easy fix." It was not entirely true, but telling her the truth would force the question he was not ready for. "Why are you helping me?" Lily walked around the car, touching it gently like someone greeting an old friend. "Thank you, Noah. Really." She paused, then frowned. "How much do I owe you?" "Nothing." Her eyes widened. "No, I cannot let you do that again. I will pay something. Anything." He shook his head, leaning against the workbench with an amused look. "You already paid for it." She blinked at him. "How?" "Sandwiches," he said. "The shop's official currency." She let out a short, breathy laugh, the kind that carried more relief than humor. She handed him the bag, her fingers brushing his again. He felt the warmth long after the contact ended. She hesitated at the door. "I teach an art class on Saturdays at the community center. Mostly adults, some seniors. It is nothing big, but if you ever want to stop by, we always need extra hands." Noah froze. Community centers were exactly the places his family's public relations team loved to parade him through for photos. He had spent years refusing that world. But this was different. She was not asking him to attend as a billionaire. She was asking him as Noah. "Maybe," he said quietly. "We will see." Lily nodded, clearly not expecting him to show up. She gave him one last grateful smile before walking out into the cooling evening. The bag of sandwiches warmed his palm as he watched her disappear down the sidewalk. Noah stood alone in the doorway of the garage, listening to the fading hum of traffic. He had come here to escape everything that made his life complicated. Yet somehow, this simple woman with paint-stained jeans and a trembling smile had begun to pull him back towards something he thought he had lost. Purpose, connection, warmth. He took a deep breath, feeling the tug again, deeper this time. Maybe it was nothing. Or maybe it was the beginning of something he had never expected when he stepped into this dusty garage months ago. And as he locked up the shop for the night, Noah knew one thing for certain. Lily Hart was going to be trouble. The kind he was dangerously close to welcoming. The next morning arrived with a thin layer of fog settling over the small town, the kind that made headlights glow and the world feel quieter than usual. Noah unlocked the shop just after sunrise, flipping on the lights and listening to the familiar hum of the old building waking up. But his thoughts were not on the cars waiting for repair. They kept circling back to Lily and the soft way she had thanked him the night before, the way her voice carried both exhaustion and hope. He told himself that today would be normal, that he would keep his head down, fix engines, avoid unnecessary conversation, and ignore the fact that a woman he barely knew had already slipped under his defenses. That plan lasted exactly 20 minutes. Because at 7:42 a.m., a familiar tan Chevrolet rolled into the shop lot. Lily stepped out with a canvas tote bag, her hair pulled into a messy bun, smudges of blue and green paint streaking her forearm. She looked like she had just come from a creative whirlwind, and somehow, she made the morning brighter just by standing there. Noah stepped outside before he could talk himself out of it. "Everything all right?" he asked, trying to sound casual even though his chest tightened in a way he refused to analyze. Lily laughed softly. "Yes, the Chevy survived the morning. I just had a delivery on this side of town and wanted to bring something by." She lifted the tote bag. "It is not sandwiches this time." She pulled out a small rectangular object wrapped in brown paper and handed it to him. "I made it last night." Noah stared at it like it might explode. "You made something for me? Just open it," she said, her cheeks coloring with embarrassment. He carefully peeled back the paper. Inside was a small painting, maybe 8 by 10 inches, of the auto shop as it had looked during the golden hour the previous evening. Warm light spilled across the pavement. His silhouette stood in the doorway, barely defined but unmistakably him. The colors were soft but vivid. It was real. It was honest. And it hit him harder than he expected. He swallowed. "Lily, this is—" "You do not have to like it," she said quickly, misreading his silence. "I just wanted to thank you again for helping me yesterday. I do not have much to give, but I can give this." He shook his head. "No, I like it. I like it a lot." She exhaled in relief, then laughed nervously. "Good. I was afraid you would think I was strange." "You are not strange," he said, and meant it more than he realized. For a moment, they stood there in the cool morning, the painting between them like an unspoken promise of something neither of them could name yet. Then a voice shouted from across the lot. "Hey, Hale, we need you over here." Noah stiffened. One of the part-time mechanics, an older man with a bad back and no filter, waved him over. Noah shot a quick look at Lily, hoping she had not caught the slip. She only smiled politely. "Duty calls. I will get out of your way," she said. She turned to leave, but Noah stepped forward. "Lily, wait." She paused, tilting her head. "Are you still teaching that art class tomorrow?" "Yes," she said. "It is every Saturday morning. We work on small community murals or beginner projects. Mostly people just want a place to breathe." Noah hesitated. He thought of the countless charity events he had been dragged to in his former life. Rooms filled with reporters. Forced smiles. Empty speeches about community impact. None of it had ever felt real. But this small, earnest class with paint-splattered tables and people who showed up because they needed connection, not publicity, this felt different. "If I showed up, would that be all right?" he asked. Lily blinked, genuinely surprised. "Of course. You would be welcome." "All right," he said softly. "Then I will see you tomorrow." Her smile brightened the foggy morning more than the rising sun ever could. She climbed into her Chevy, waved shyly, and drove off. Noah watched until her taillights disappeared, the painting still warm in his hands. He felt something unsettling and undeniably hopeful stirring inside him. Something he had not felt in a long time. Tomorrow, he would walk into her world. Not as a billionaire, not as an heir, but as the man she believed him to be. And he knew, deep down, that this step might change everything. Saturday morning arrived with sunlight spilling across the town in soft gold tones, the kind that made everything feel gentler and more possible. Noah stood outside the community center with his hands shoved into the pockets of his worn work jeans, wondering for the 10th time why he was nervous. He had been in boardrooms with billionaires, had spoken on stages in front of thousands, had negotiated contracts worth more than this entire building. Yet somehow walking into Lily's art class made his heart beat, like he was facing something far more dangerous. He pushed the door open slowly. The air inside smelled of acrylic paint, old wood floors, and warm coffee. Laughter drifted from the back room where a handful of adults sat around long tables covered in canvases, water cups, and mismatched brushes. And then there was Lily. She was tying her apron, hair in another messy bun, a paint streak on her cheek that she did not seem aware of. She looked up and froze for half a second when she saw him, her surprise breaking into a smile that felt like a quiet sunrise. "You came," she said, almost in disbelief. "I said I would," Noah replied, trying not to stare too long. "Where do you need me?" She handed him an apron with a sheepish grin. "Warning, this job pays in paint splatters." He tied the apron on, ignoring the way it barely fit his broad shoulders. The class had already begun, with Lily demonstrating simple brush techniques while the others followed along. A woman in her 60s kept squinting at her canvas. A man who worked night shifts struggled to mix the right color. A retired carpenter dipped his brush too deep and splashed blue paint across his shirt. Lily moved between them with endless patience, guiding each person with soft words and gentle corrections. Watching her, Noah felt something warm settle inside him. Something like admiration, but deeper, steadier. When she reached him, she placed a paint palette in his hand. "Try adding light to this corner," she said, pointing to a small practice canvas. Her hands brushed his lightly, and for an instant the room felt too warm. He cleared his throat. "I do not know what I am doing." "Good," she said playfully. "That means you will learn faster than the ones who think they already know it all." She stepped away to help someone else, leaving Noah staring at the blank canvas like it was a new kind of engine he had never seen before. After a few awkward strokes, the man beside him leaned over. "Do not worry, big guy. First time is always rough. I once painted a cat that looked like a potato." Noah laughed, letting the tension slip from his shoulders. Soon he found himself enjoying the slow rhythm of brush against canvas, the way the colors blended, the simple peace of being in a room where no one expected anything from him except effort. At one point Lily looked over and tilted her head. "You are better than you said you were." "That is generous," Noah replied. "This looks like a house fire." "A very colorful house fire," she said, grinning. 2 hours passed quietly. People finished their pieces, washed brushes, packed up, and thanked Lily on their way out. One woman pressed a small knitted bracelet into Lily's hand, and Lily hugged her like they were old friends. This was her world, Noah realized, built on kindness, patience, and the simple belief that people deserved a place where they were seen. When the last student left, Lily turned to Noah, brushing stray paint from her apron. "Thank you for helping today. I mean it. Most people are too busy, or they come once and never again." He held up his messy canvas. "Well, now that I have created this masterpiece, it would be rude not to return." She laughed, that soft musical sound he was becoming addicted to. But then her expression shifted, gentler. "You know, Noah, you do not have to hide here. If you ever need to talk, or if something is weighing on you, this place is safe." His chest tightened. She had no idea how close she was to the truth. He wanted to tell her everything in that moment. Wanted to say that he was not who she thought he was, that he was living a lie because he needed a life that felt real for once. But her eyes held so much trust that he could not bring himself to break it. Not yet. So he simply nodded. "Thank you, Lily." She wiped paint from her fingers and looked at him with a warmth that made the room feel brighter. "Good. Then I hope you come back next week." "I will," he said, and this time he meant it. As he walked out into the sunlight, the paint-splattered canvas tucked under his arm, Noah realized something quietly terrifying. Lily was becoming the one part of his life he could not walk away from. And hiding the truth from her was no longer just a decision. It was a ticking clock. The week after the art class moved quietly at first, the kind of quiet that settles before something important shifts, and Noah found himself counting the days without admitting it even to himself. Every time the shop door creaked open, he caught himself hoping it was Lily, even though he knew she had no reason to visit until Saturday. But fate, or something like it, had other plans. On Wednesday afternoon, while Noah was bent under the hood of a truck, he heard hurried footsteps approaching. He straightened, wiping the sweat and engine grease from his forehead, just as Lily rushed inside, breathless and flushed, clutching a folder to her chest. "Noah," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I did not know where else to go." Instantly alert, he stepped closer. "What is wrong?" She pushed a strand of hair behind her ear, but her hands were shaking. The community center might lose its funding. They have been struggling for years, but this morning they told me they cannot afford art programs anymore. They might shut everything down by the end of the month. Her words hung in the air like something fragile and painful. Noah felt something tighten inside him. He had seen buildings like the community center demolished without a second thought, replaced by high-rise offices or shopping complexes. But this little building, with its chipped paint and warm laughter, meant something to Lily. And, if he was honest, it had begun to mean something to him too. She opened the folder and handed him a small stack of papers. "These are proposals I have been working on for months. Grants, partnerships, anything to keep the classes running. But nobody has responded. Nobody believes this place matters." Noah looked at the pages, scanning numbers and plans she had poured her heart into. Her handwriting trailed across the margins with notes about students, ideas for murals, ways to help seniors feel less alone. She was fighting for something beautiful, something real. He took a slow breath. Lily, you are not alone in this. What do you need? She stared at him, shocked by how quickly he offered support. I do not know. Advice? Maybe just someone to tell me I am not crazy for wanting to save it. You are not crazy, he said firmly. You are brave. Her eyes softened, filling with unshed tears she refused to let fall. Thank you, Noah. I just wish I knew where to find someone who could sponsor us, someone who cares about community programs. But people like that do not walk into small towns like ours. He swallowed the truth that rose in his throat. He was exactly the kind of person she needed. A billionaire who could sign a check and save the center without blinking. But she did not know that, and telling her now would unravel everything he had built with her. The simple friendship, the trust, the fragile, growing thing between them. He forced himself to stay silent about his real identity. Instead, he said, let me help you think. Maybe there is a business in town that could partner with you. Maybe we can organize a fundraiser. We? She repeated, surprise spreading across her face. You would help. Yes, he said, and he meant it. Whatever you need. Her shoulders relaxed for the first time since she walked in. She let out a long breath and smiled at him, a soft, grateful smile that made his resolve wobble. Thank you, Noah. I do not know what I would do without you. He felt the words brush against something deep in him. Dangerous. Tender. He cleared his throat. So what is the next step? She brightened, lifting the folder again. There is a meeting tomorrow with the center director. I wanted to bring someone for moral support. Would you come with me? Without hesitation, he said, of course. As she left the shop, hope restored in her eyes, Noah watched her walk away with a feeling he could no longer ignore. He was falling, hard, and with every step he took toward her world, the secret he carried grew heavier. At some point, it would break everything or save everything. But for now, he would stand beside her, whatever it cost him. The next afternoon came with a restless kind of energy, the kind that made Noah pace the shop floor long before Lily arrived to pick him up for the meeting. He had tried to calm himself by working on a transmission, but even the steady rhythm of tools and metal could not quiet the storm inside him. He was walking into a situation where every instinct told him to reveal the truth and end the charade. Yet every fear reminded him that the moment Lily learned who he really was, she might never look at him the same way again. At exactly 3 o'clock, Lily pulled up in her Chevrolet, the engine giving a hopeful rumble thanks to his repair. She stepped out wearing a simple blouse and dark jeans, her hair pulled back neatly for once, though a tiny streak of paint on her wrist betrayed who she truly was far better than any polished outfit could. Noah felt something warm settle in his chest at the sight. Ready? She asked, but there was a tremble in her voice that told him she was anything but. I am, he said, pulling open the passenger door for her. She tried to protest, saying she could open it herself, but he shook his head with a soft smile. Let me feel useful. She laughed nervously as he rounded the car and climbed in. You are always useful. The drive to the community center felt shorter than usual, the soft hum of the highway filling the silence between them. Noah kept stealing small glances at Lily, watching the way she kept smoothing her proposal folder with her fingers, as if afraid the papers might disappear if she stopped touching them. When they arrived, the director, Mrs. Dalton, was waiting in the office, a woman in her late 70s with sharp eyes softened by decades of caring for people who needed a place to belong. She greeted Lily warmly, and then turned to Noah with a curious look. And you must be the friend Lily mentioned. Yes, ma'am, Noah said, offering a handshake. I am here to support however I can. Well, we can use all the support we can get, Mrs. Dalton replied, sighing as she motioned for them to sit. Lily opened her folder, and Noah watched her transform from the soft, hopeful woman he knew into someone steady and determined. She outlined the proposal she had written, her voice clear and confident despite the tension that flickered in her eyes. She spoke about the impact the classes had made, the seniors who came every week just to feel less lonely, the adults who used art as a way to breathe through their struggles. Noah felt pride swell inside him as he listened. She was fighting not for herself, but for an entire community. When she finished, Mrs. Dalton folded her hands on the desk. Lily, Your dedication is remarkable. Truly. But even with these proposals, I am afraid the center simply does not have enough resources to stay open. Unless we find a benefactor or partner soon, the lights will go out by next month. The words hit Lily like a physical blow. Noah saw her inhale sharply, blinking rapidly to keep her composure. He felt something twist painfully inside him. He could fix this in seconds. One phone call, one signature, one simple reveal. I am Noah Hale, heir to a billion-dollar empire. But every time the truth reached his lips, fear stopped him. He had seen what happened when people learned his identity. They changed. They backed away. They stepped closer for the wrong reasons. But Lily looked at him like he was enough exactly as he was standing here in worn jeans and a mechanic's shirt. He could not lose that. Not yet. Instead, he leaned forward and spoke carefully. What if we host a fundraiser? Something small for now. An art auction or a community event. We can gather local businesses, bring people together, and show them the value of the center. Mrs. Dalton considered it. It might not save us completely, but it could buy us time. And time is something we desperately need. Lily turned to Noah, eyes shining with a flicker of hope. Do you really think people would come? If you lead it, he said without hesitation, they will. Her cheeks flushed with a mix of embarrassment and gratitude. Then we will try, she whispered. We have to try. As they left the office, Lily let out a long breath and leaned against the hallway wall. Thank you, Noah. I know you did not have to come, but I am glad you did. He looked at her, wanting to say the truth in that moment. That he would stand beside her through anything. That she had become the one thing he looked forward to every week. That he cared about her more deeply than he should. But instead, he said simply, I am here. Whatever happens next, I am not going anywhere. Lily smiled at him, soft and grateful, unaware that the man making promises beside her was living behind a mask that was beginning to crack. And as they stepped out into the fading afternoon light, Noah felt the clock inside him tick louder. He was running out of time to tell her who he really was. And he knew, with growing certainty, that the longer he waited, the more it would hurt when the truth finally came out. The days leading up to the fundraiser moved faster than either of them expected, and soon the entire town was buzzing with talk about the event Lily and Noah were planning. Flyers went up in grocery stores and coffee shops. Local businesses offered small donations. Volunteers gathered paint supplies and folding tables, and the quiet little community center that had been on the verge of shutting down suddenly felt alive again. Noah spent every evening helping Lily after the shop closed, hauling boxes, setting up booths, and repairing anything that wobbled or squeaked. He watched her work with an intensity and passion that only made him fall harder, yet the weight of the truth sat heavy in his chest every time she smiled at him like he was someone steady and simple. On Friday night, the final preparation wrapped up just after sunset. The two of them stepped out into the cool evening air, exhausted and covered in specks of paint, but content. Lily let out a long breath. Tomorrow decides everything. If people show up, we might have a chance. They will show up, Noah said, even though doubt twisted quietly inside him. The town was small. People were struggling. Not everyone had money to donate. But he refused to let worry show on his face. She needed hope tonight, not statistics. Lily brushed her hands down her jeans, leaving streaks of yellow and blue across the denim. Walk with me, she asked softly. He nodded, and together they walked down the sidewalk lit by glowing street lamps, the kind that made the night feel gentle instead of lonely. I never asked, Lily said after a moment. How long have you been working as a mechanic? The question hit Noah harder than it should have. He knew she would ask eventually, but he had hoped the moment would feel less like stepping onto thin ice. A while, he said carefully. I needed a change from the life I had before. What was it like? What did you do? He hesitated, grasping for a truth that was not the whole truth. Mostly business. But it was not the kind of life that made me feel like I belonged anywhere. She looked at him, her gaze softening with empathy instead of curiosity. I understand that more than you know. You do? Yes, she said quietly. Before the community center offered me a place to teach, I felt like a ghost in my own town. I was working 2 jobs, barely sleeping, barely living. The center gave me a purpose. That is why losing it feels like losing the one place where I matter. Noah stopped walking. You matter far more than you think, Lily. Her breath caught, and for a moment neither of them moved. Something warm pulsed between them, subtle but undeniable. Lily looked away, flustered. You always know what to say, she murmured. Only when it is true, he said. They reached her car, and she leaned against the door, fiddling with her keys. Tomorrow is going to be a big day. I should get some sleep. Will you be all right? He asked. She nodded. I think so, especially knowing you will be there. He felt something crack open inside him at those words. He wanted to tell her everything. Tell her that he could save the center with a single phone call. Tell her that she was trusting a man who was hiding the biggest part of himself. But just as the words rose, lights flashed suddenly from the end of the street. A sleek black luxury car rolled to a stop near them, its tinted windows glinting under the street lamps. Noah's breath froze. He recognized that car, and the person who stepped out, dressed in a tailored suit, carrying himself with the confidence of someone born into power, came Nathan Hale, his older brother. Lily tensed at Noah's sudden stillness. Noah? Who is that? Noah's heart pounded as Nathan approached with a slow, deliberate stride. Little brother, Nathan said, stopping a few feet away. You have been very difficult to track down. Lily looked between them, confused. Brother? Noah's stomach dropped. This was too soon, too fast, too exposed. Nathan's gaze shifted to Lily, assessing her with the sharpness of someone used to evaluating threats. You must be the reason he has been hiding out here. Nathan, Noah said, sharply, stepping forward. Not here. But Nathan ignored him. Do you have any idea who Noah really is? Lily blinked, bewildered. He is a mechanic. Nathan laughed, a cold sound that echoed too loudly. No, he is Noah Hale, heir to Hale Dynasty Motors. A billionaire who ran away from his responsibilities to play dress-up in a garage. Silence fell heavy and suffocating. Lily's eyes widened, hurt flashing across her face before she could hide it. She stepped back from Noah as if the ground under her feet had tilted. Is that true? She whispered. Noah felt everything inside him collapse. The moment he had been dreading was here, and it was as devastating as he feared. Lily, please, let me explain. But she shook her head, tears gathering in her eyes. You lied to me. He reached for her, but she stepped away, her voice trembling. You let me tell you everything about my life, my struggles, my fears, and the whole time you knew you could fix them with a signature. You let me fight alone. Lily, I did not want to lie. You did lie, she said, her voice breaking. And the worst part is, I trusted you. She turned, climbed into her car, and drove away before he could speak another word. Noah stood frozen in the street as her taillights disappeared into the dark, his brother watching with a mixture of pity and disappointment. And for the first time since he walked away from his empire, Noah felt truly lost. The night after Lily drove away felt colder than any winter Noah had ever lived through, even though the air outside was mild. He barely slept, replaying every moment with her, every chance he had to tell the truth, and chose silence instead. By morning, the fundraiser that was supposed to save the community center felt like a storm he had caused, a storm that might wash away everything she had built. When Noah arrived at the center, volunteers were already setting up booths, arranging art pieces, hanging string lights across the courtyard to make the old building look festive. But the moment Lily saw him, her expression froze. She did not turn away, but she did not smile either, and that hurt more than any words she could have said. She stood near the entrance, directing people, her voice steady but distant. Noah approached slowly, as if any wrong step might shatter what little remained between them. Lily, he said quietly, please let me help today. This event is for the community, she replied without looking at him. Not for personal drama. I never meant to hurt you, Noah said, his voice breaking despite his effort to stay calm. She sighed, her eyes filled with exhaustion instead of anger. Noah, I cannot do this right now. There are tables missing. The speakers do not work. Mrs. Dalton needs the donation box sorted. I have 1,000 things to fix. Then let me fix them, he pleaded. I will do whatever you need. Lily hesitated just long enough for him to feel a flicker of hope. Then she handed him a box of extension cords and walked away without another word. Noah took the cords, his chest tight, and forced himself to get to work. This was her day, her dream. He owed her everything he had to give, even if she never forgave him. People arrived slowly, trickling in with curiosity and warm smiles. Children tugged at their parents' hands. Couples strolled hand in hand. Seniors shuffled along with their walkers. Local artists displayed their paintings along the courtyard walls, proud and nervous. Despite the heaviness in Noah's chest, he could not help feeling amazed by what Lily had created. This was more than a fundraiser. It was a gathering of souls who needed a place to belong. As the crowd grew, Noah handled every behind-the-scenes crisis silently. When a canopy collapsed, he fixed it. When a table wobbled, he tightened every bolt. When the lights flickered, he rewired the entire connection. And every time he passed Lily, she gave him a polite nod, but nothing more. She was hurting. He could see it in every forced smile, every quick step to avoid standing still long enough for her emotions to catch up with her. He had broken something precious. During the peak of the event, Mrs. Dalton climbed onto the small stage. Lily stood beside her, holding a microphone, her hands trembling slightly. But her voice was steady when she addressed the crowd. "Thank you all for coming today," she said. "This center has been a safe place for so many, and your support means everything. We hope that tonight reminds you of what this community is capable of." Then something unexpected happened. A man stepped forward from the crowd with a small wooden box. "My wife used to come here before she passed," he said. "She loved the classes. She would want this place to stay open." He placed a check inside the donation box. Another woman followed. Then a teenager. Then a couple. Soon, a line formed. Donations, small and large, filled the box. Lily's eyes filled with tears, she quickly wiped away. Hope was returning. Half an hour later, the director approached Lily and hugged her tightly. "I think we might make it, dear. We might actually make it." Lily laughed with disbelief, joy, and relief all tangled together. Noah watched from a distance, his heart swelling with pride and ache. This was her victory. Her heart carried the event. Her courage brought people together, and he had almost ruined it. As the sun began to set, painting the courtyard in warm orange tones, Lily finally approached him. Not with anger, not with the coldness from earlier, but with a tired sadness that hurt even worse. "Thank you for helping." "Lily, I am so sorry," Noah said, his voice low and raw. "I should have told you who I was. I know I broke your trust." She looked at him, truly looked at him, for the first time since the reveal. "You did. And it is not about the money or the name or the empire you walked away from. It is the fact that I let you into my world while you kept me out of yours." Noah swallowed hard. "I know, and I will spend however long it takes to make it right." She looked away, her voice barely above a whisper. "I just do not know if I can believe you again." A silence fell between them, heavy with everything unsaid. But then Mrs. Dalton called out Lily's name, and she stepped back, leaving Noah standing alone in the fading light. The fundraiser had saved the center, but Noah feared he had already lost Lily. And now, the only thing left was the choice he would make to try to win her trust back. The following week unfolded slowly, as if the world itself was hesitating, unsure whether to bring Noah and Lily closer or pull them further apart. The fundraiser had saved the community center, and news spread across town that the programs would continue, bringing relief and celebration to everyone except the two people who had worked hardest to protect it. Lily threw herself into planning new workshops, updating schedules, and organizing supply closets, keeping her days full so she would have no space to think about the man who had stood by her side through everything and yet had kept the truth from her. Noah, meanwhile, returned to the auto shop, but everything felt different now. The familiar smell of oil and metal no longer calmed him. The steady hum of engines could not drown out the ache in his chest. He missed her, missed the way she laughed easily, the way she talked about art with her whole heart, the way she looked at him like she saw the man he wanted to be, not the billionaire he had been born to become. On Wednesday afternoon, Noah stood outside the community center with a folder in his hands. Inside were signed documents, partnership agreements, and a long-term funding commitment from Hale Dynasty Motors. He had convinced the board and his family, after 3 sleepless nights, to support the center without turning it into a publicity stunt. No photographs, no press, no announcements, just quiet funding for the place that had given Lily a home. He stepped inside, heart thudding, and found Lily alone in the mural room, sorting paintbrushes into glass jars. Sunlight streamed through the windows, catching flecks of dried paint on her clothes and turning them into scattered stars. She looked up when she heard him, her posture tensing slightly. "Noah," she said softly, guarded but not cold. "What are you doing here?" He took a breath. "I came to tell you the truth. The whole truth. Not the parts that were convenient. She did not move, but she did not walk away either. Encouraged, he stepped closer. Lily, I left the company because I could not breathe in that world anymore. Every day felt like performing a role I never chose. When I came here, I was not trying to hurt anyone. I was trying to find myself. She looked down at the brushes, her fingers gently tapping one against the table. And you found a mechanic's shirt and a garage to hide in. I found peace, he said. And I found you. Her breath caught, but she did not meet his eyes. Noah opened the folder and set it on the table beside her. This is for the center. It is real support. Long term. No conditions. No cameras. No publicity. Just help. Lily slowly lifted the papers, scanning them with confusion that turned to disbelief. You did this. You saved that place, he said. I only gave it the stability it deserved. Tears gathered at the corners of her eyes, but she blinked them back. Noah, this is everything. But I do not know if it changes what happened. I know, he said softly. And I am not asking for forgiveness right now. I am asking for a chance to prove that the man you cared about, the man who repaired your alternator, the man who sat with you in art class, the man who stood with you at the fundraiser, was not a lie. The money was never the truth. This, he placed his hand over his heart, is. Silence filled the room, warm and fragile. Lily finally looked at him, really looked at him, and the wall she had built around her heart trembled but did not fall. You hurt me, she said, her voice breaking. And I hated that I still wanted you near me even after I found out. He nodded, tears threatening but held back. I know, and I will spend as long as it takes to earn back your trust. For a moment she said nothing. Then she stepped closer, close enough for him to hear her breath, close enough for hope to bloom painfully in his chest. Trust takes time, she whispered. But I want to believe you, Noah. I want to believe that the man standing in front of me now is the real you. He is, Noah said. I promise. She reached out, hesitating before placing her hand over his, the first touch since everything had shattered. It was small and delicate, but it felt like a lifeline. A beginning. Then do not disappear again, she said. Do not hide from me. Never again, he replied. She exhaled shakily, then let out a fragile laugh that carried more relief than joy. You know, she said softly, the community center could use someone to help fix things, and not just engines. Maybe someone who can paint very colorful house fires. He smiled, feeling his heart settle for the first time in days. I think I know a guy. Lily squeezed his hand gently. Stay? Help. Be honest. That is all I want. And standing there in the sunlight, surrounded by brushes and color and second chances, Noah realized that he had finally found a place where he belonged, not because of his last name, but because of the woman who saw the man beneath it. Their story had begun with a broken car. It continued with a broken truth. But now, it was healing with something stronger than either of them could have imagined. Trust, redemption, and a love honest enough to last.